Danny Martinez pushed his thick glasses up his nose for the 100th time that morning as he walked through the corridors of the UEC Horizon. The other crew members barely looked at him as he passed, and when they did, he could see the smirks on their faces. At 24 years old, Danny was the shortest person on the ship, and everyone knew it. He barely met the height requirements for space service, and his commanding officers never let him forget it. Kyle Johnson, his bunkmate, was already spreading jokes about Danny's latest failure in combat training. Yesterday, Danny had somehow managed to shoot himself in the foot with a training laser during target practice. The safety instructor had stared at him with complete disbelief because nobody had ever done that before. The weapon was designed to make such accidents impossible, yet Danny had found a way. "I swear that guy could mess up boiling water," Kyle said loudly as Danny walked past the mess hall. The other soldiers laughed and nodded their heads in agreement. Danny tried to ignore them, but his face turned red anyway. He adjusted his glasses again and kept walking toward his assigned station in the Zenitech lab. Captain Lisa Adams barely tolerated Danny's presence on her ship. She had tried 3 times to transfer him to a supply depot on some distant moon, but each request had been denied by higher command. The reason was simple but frustrating. Danny had a strange gift for understanding alien technology that nobody could explain. Where trained engineers with decades of experience failed to make sense of captured alien devices, Danny could usually figure them out within hours. This talent was the only thing keeping him aboard a combat vessel instead of scrubbing floors on a cargo hauler. Still, Captain Adams made it clear that she considered him more trouble than he was worth. During their last meeting, she had told him that his technical abilities did not make up for his complete inability to handle basic military duties. The Zenitech lab was Danny's sanctuary, the one place on the ship where he felt useful and competent. Scattered across the metal tables were dozens of alien devices collected from previous encounters with various species. Some were weapons that human scientists could not activate. Others were tools whose purpose remained mysterious. Danny understood most of them instinctively, though he could never explain how today he was supposed to calibrate a scanner captured from a peaceful trading species called the Meridians. The device could detect energy signatures from vast distances, making it valuable for navigation and threat assessment. The problem was that it kept interfacing incorrectly with human computer systems, causing random error messages and false readings. Danny connected the alien scanner to the ship's main computer network and began running diagnostic tests. The device hummed softly as streams of data flowed across his monitor screen. Everything looked normal at first, but then he noticed something odd about the energy patterns. The scanner was detecting something that the ship's regular sensors could not see. He leaned closer to examine the readings more carefully. According to the alien device, there was a massive energy signature somewhere nearby, but human sensors showed nothing but empty space. Danny frowned and adjusted the scanner's sensitivity settings, trying to get a clearer picture of whatever it was detecting. The energy signature grew stronger and more defined as he fine-tuned the device. It was huge, much larger than their own ship, and it was moving toward them at incredible speed. Danny's hands began to shake as he realized what he was looking at. This was not a natural phenomenon or some kind of space debris. The energy patterns indicated an artificial construct, most likely a vessel of unknown design. Danny tried to contact the bridge to report his findings, but his nervous voice cracked when he spoke into the communication device. Lieutenant Commander Jake Peterson answered with obvious annoyance in his tone. Peterson had never taken Danny seriously, and today was no different. "What is it now, Martinez?" Peterson said with a heavy sigh. "Did you break something else?" "Sir, I think you need to see these readings," Danny stammered. "The alien scanner is detecting something big headed our way, but our regular sensors are not picking it up." Martinez "We have been over this before," Peterson replied coldly. "Those alien gadgets malfunction constantly. Stop wasting our time with false alarms and focus on your actual job." The communication line went dead, leaving Danny alone with his growing concern. He stared at the scanner readings and watched the massive energy signature continue to approach their position. Whatever was out there, it was getting closer by the minute, and nobody would listen to his warnings. Danny's hands trembled as he made one final adjustment to the scanner's calibration settings. The energy signature suddenly became crystal clear on his screen, and what he saw made his blood run cold. The approaching object was not just large. It was enormous, easily 10 times the size of the UES horizon. Its energy patterns indicated advanced weapon systems and defensive capabilities far beyond anything in human technology. An alien warship was bearing down on them, and Danny Martinez was the only person on the entire ship who knew about it. 3 weeks had passed since Danny's warning about the unknown energy signature, and the crew had completely forgotten about his concerns. Lieutenant Commander Peterson had filed a report noting another false alarm from the Zenitech lab, and Captain Adams had grown even more frustrated with Danny's presence on her ship. The massive alien vessel had never appeared on their regular sensors, so everyone assumed Danny had simply misread the alien scanner again. Danny himself had begun to doubt what he had seen. The alien device had returned to normal operation after that day, showing only routine space debris and distant stars. Maybe Peterson was right. Maybe the scanner had malfunctioned and created false readings. Danny tried to convince himself that he had made an honest mistake, but something deep in his mind kept nagging at him. The UES Horizon was conducting a routine patrol near the Kepler 442 system when everything changed. Captain Adams was reviewing supply reports on the bridge while her crew carried out standard maintenance duties throughout the ship. The morning shift had just begun, and most of the crew was still drinking coffee and complaining about their assignments. Suddenly, every alarm on the ship began screaming at once. Emergency lights flashed red throughout the corridors as the computer announced a priority alert. On the main view screen, a massive shape materialized out of nowhere, blotting out the stars behind it. The alien vessel was exactly as Danny had described it weeks earlier: enormous, predatory, and completely unknown to human databases. "All hands to battle stations," Captain Adams shouted over the noise of the alarms. "Communications, attempt standard first contact protocols immediately." The ship that faced them was unlike anything humanity had ever encountered. Its hull was dark and angular, covered with strange markings that seemed to shift and change when observed directly. Weapon ports lined its surface, like the eyes of some cosmic predator, and energy discharges crackled between antenna-like projections along its spine. Lieutenant Rodriguez at the communications station tried every known greeting protocol, broadcasting in dozens of languages, both human and alien. The response came within seconds, but it was not what anyone had hoped to hear. A beam of pure energy lanced out from the alien vessel and struck the Horizon's forward shields with devastating force. Impact threw everyone on the bridge to the floor. Sparks flew from control panels as the ship's defensive systems struggled to absorb the alien weapon's power. Captain Adams pulled herself back into her command chair and immediately ordered return fire, but their plasma cannons had no effect on the alien vessel's shields. The enemy's defensive barriers absorbed their weapons' fire like it was nothing more than flashlight beams. Commander Estar stood on the bridge of his warship and watched the primitive human vessel attempt to fight back. The Vorthak Empire had conquered 17 star systems in the past century, and this encounter would be no different from any other. These humans were just another species that would learn to serve the Empire or face complete destruction. The Vorthak were a militaristic race that had built their civilization on conquest and domination. Standing nearly 8 feet tall with multiple arms and chitinous armor covering their bodies, they were perfectly designed for warfare. Their technology was a mixture of their own innovations and devices stolen from conquered species, making them one of the most dangerous forces in the galaxy. "Target their weapon systems," Sethkar commanded in his harsh, clicking language. "Disable, but do not destroy. We need prisoners for interrogation." The second alien attack was even more devastating than the first. Energy beams sliced through the horizon's shields like they were made of paper, striking the hull directly and causing explosive decompression in several sections. The ship's main weapons went offline, and life support systems began failing throughout. The vessel. Danny felt the impacts from his position in the Xenotech lab and immediately began studying his instruments. The energy signatures were familiar somehow, though he could not place where he had seen them before. As he analyzed the readings more carefully, a pattern began to emerge that made his eyes widen with recognition. The alien weapons were not entirely unknown to him. They were modified versions of technology from the Meridians, the peaceful trading species whose scanner he had been working with for weeks. The energy patterns were similar, but corrupted somehow, as if someone had taken Meridian technology and twisted it into something deadly and aggressive. This discovery meant that either the Meridians had lied about their peaceful nature, or someone else had stolen their technology and weaponized it. Danny suspected the latter, which would explain why the alien scanner had been able to detect the approaching vessel when human sensors could not. The scanner was designed to recognize Meridian energy signatures, and these weapons were based on Meridian technology. Danny tried again to contact the bridge with his findings, but the communication systems were damaged and full of static. He could hear Captain Adams shouting orders in the background and the sound of more explosions as the alien assault continued. Emergency crews ran through the corridors outside his lab, carrying wounded crew members toward the medical bay. The alien vessel moved closer to the horizon, and Danny could see through the lab's small porthole that it was preparing to dock with their ship. Mechanical arms extended from the enemy hull, reaching toward the human vessel like the tentacles of some space-borne monster. Whatever these aliens wanted, they were not content to simply destroy the horizon from a distance. Danny realized that his knowledge of Meridian technology might be the key to understanding the alien weapons and finding a way to defend against them. If he could modify the ship's remaining systems using principles from the peaceful traders, he might be able to create defenses that could resist the corrupted Meridian weapons. But first, he had to find a way to make someone listen to him before it was too late. The U.E.'s horizon shuddered under another devastating impact as the alien vessel continued its relentless assault. Emergency lighting cast eerie red shadows throughout the corridors, and the smell of burning electronics filled the air. Captain Adams watched her crew struggle to maintain basic ship functions while their enemies prepared for what appeared to be a boarding operation. "Damage report," Adams called out, though she already knew the answer would be grim. Half her officers were dead or wounded. Main power was failing, and their weapon systems were completely offline. The alien technology was so far advanced beyond human capabilities that resistance seemed pointless. Lieutenant Rodriguez looked up from his damaged console with blood running down his face from a head wound. "Life support is failing on decks 4 through 7, Captain. We have lost contact with engineering, and the medical bay is overcrowded with casualties. Our defensive systems are operating at less than 10% capacity." Through the bridges. Main view screen. Adams could see metallic appendages extending from the alien ship toward their hull. The enemy vessel was preparing to dock with them, which meant boarding parties would follow soon. She had perhaps minutes to make a decision that would determine whether her crew lived or died. In the Xenotech lab, Danny worked frantically to establish communication with the bridge. The ship's internal network was badly damaged, but he managed to create a weak connection using backup systems and jury-rigged components from alien devices. His hands shook as he transmitted his findings about the Meridian technology connection. "Captain Adams, this is Martinez in Zenitech." Danny's voice crackled through the static-filled communication system. "I know how their weapons work. They are using modified Meridian technology, and I think I can create defenses against them." Adams nearly ignored the transmission, assuming it was another one of Danny's false alarms. But with her ship dying around her and no other options available, she decided to listen. "Martinez, you have 30 seconds to explain yourself before I cut this line." Danny spoke as quickly as he could, explaining the energy signature similarities between the alien weapons and Meridian technology. He described his theory that the attackers had stolen peaceful technology and corrupted it for warfare. Most importantly, he outlined a desperate plan to modify the remaining shield generators using hybrid human Meridian principles. "That is completely impossible," Chief Engineer Amy Roberts interrupted from her position near the damage control station. "You cannot just connect alien components to our systems and expect them to work. It would violate every safety protocol we have. Our safety protocols are not helping us right now," Adams replied grimly as another explosion rocked the ship. She made a decision that went against every instinct she had developed during 20 years of military service. "Martinez, you have authorization to attempt your modifications. Roberts, give him whatever support he needs." Danny left the Zenitech lab and ran through damaged corridors toward the shield generator room. Emergency crews stepped aside as he passed, their faces showing the hopelessness that had settled over the ship. Some of them recognized him as the awkward technician who could barely handle a plasma rifle, and they wondered why he was running toward the most critical system on the ship. The shield generator room was a disaster zone of sparking cables and damaged equipment. 3 engineers lay unconscious near the main console, overcome by electrical burns and smoke inhalation. Amy Roberts arrived moments after Danny and immediately began assessing the damage while he studied the alien components he had brought with him. "This is insane," Roberts muttered as she watched Danny connect Meridian devices to human shield systems. "These components use completely different power sources and control interfaces. There is no way this should work." Danny ignored her protests and continued working. His intuitive understanding of alien technology guided his hands as he made connections that defied conventional engineering wisdom. He bypassed safety systems and rerouted power through pathways that no human engineer would have considered safe or practical. Meanwhile, the first Vorthic boarding pods attached to the Horizon's hull with metallic thuds that echoed through the ship. Cutting tools began burning through the outer armor as the alien warriors prepared to breach human defenses. These creatures were born for war, standing nearly 8 feet tall with multiple arms and natural armor plating that could deflect small arms fire. The Vorthic expected easy victory over what they considered a technologically primitive species. Their intelligence reports indicated that humans were a young race with limited combat experience and inferior weapons technology. The boarding operation was meant to be a simple matter of overwhelming human defenders and capturing prisoners for interrogation. Danny's modifications began to take effect just as the first Vorthic warriors breached the hull. The hybrid shield system activated with a low humming sound that was different from anything the human crew had heard before. Energy patterns flowed across the ship's defensive barriers in spiraling configurations that resembled Meridian artwork more than human engineering. The alien weapons struck the modified shields, and something unexpected happened. Instead of penetrating or being absorbed, the energy was redirected back toward its source. The feedback loop created an overload condition in several Vorthic weapon systems, causing them to shut down automatically to prevent damage. "It is working," Roberts said with amazement as she watched the readings on her instruments. "The shields are not just deflecting their weapons, They are using the alien energy against itself. But Danny knew that defensive modifications alone would not save them. The Vorthic boarding parties were already inside the ship, moving through corridors and overwhelming human defenders with superior numbers and firepower. If the crew was going to survive, someone would have to take the fight directly to the alien warriors. Danny picked up a plasma rifle from one of the fallen engineers and checked its power settings. He had never been successful with weapons training, but he understood the principles behind energy weapons better than anyone else on the ship. Perhaps it was time to find out if theoretical knowledge could translate into practical combat ability. Danny Martinez held the plasma rifle in his trembling hands and tried to remember everything he had learned about Vorthic equipment during his analysis of their weapon signatures. The alien warriors were moving through the ship's corridors with deadly efficiency, their multiple arms allowing them to carry several weapons, all their chitinous armor deflected human plasma fire. The first group of Vorthic that Danny encountered was advancing toward the bridge, cutting down human defenders who tried to stop them. These creatures stood nearly 8 feet tall and moved with predatory grace despite their massive size. Their alien weapons fired energy bolts that could punch through bulkheads, and their natural armor made them nearly invulnerable to standard human firearms. Danny watched from a maintenance shaft as Lieutenant Commander Peterson led a desperate defense against the boarding party. Peterson was an excellent soldier and a skilled tactician, but his conventional training was useless against enemies who operated with completely different principles. The human defenders were being systematically eliminated as they tried to use tactics designed for fighting other humans. "Fall back to checkpoint Alpha," Peterson shouted as another crew member fell to alien fire. "Concentrate your fire on their weapons, not their armor." But Danny could see that Peterson's strategy was doomed to fail. The Vorthic weapons were designed to be nearly indestructible, and their armor was integrated with their natural biology in ways that made conventional targeting ineffective. The human defenders needed to understand their enemies better if they wanted to survive. Danny modified his plasma rifle using components from a Meridian toolkit he had brought with him. The alien targeting system integrated with the human weapon in ways that should have been impossible, but Danny's intuitive understanding of xenotechnology made the connection work. The hybrid weapon felt different in his hands, responding to his thoughts as much as his physical movements. He dropped down from the maintenance shaft behind the Vorthic boarding party and opened fire with his modified weapon. The plasma bolts struck the alien warriors in places where their armor was weakest, guided by the Meridian targeting system's ability to analyze enemy defenses in real time. 2 Vorthic fell before the others realized they were being attacked. From behind, the remaining aliens turned to face this new threat, and Danny got his first close look at the species that was trying to conquer humanity. Their faces were insectoid, with multiple eyes and mandibles that clicked together when they communicated. Their multiple arms moved independently, allowing them to aim different weapons in different directions simultaneously. Danny rolled to avoid. They returned fire and came up shooting from a different position. His small size allowed him to move through the corridor in ways that confused the larger aliens, and his understanding of their technology helped him predict their tactics. The Meridian targeting system highlighted weak points in their armor and weapons, showing him exactly where to aim for maximum effect. "Martinez," Peterson called out in amazement as he watched the ship's former joke systematically take apart a Vorthic boarding party. "How are you doing that?" "I understand their equipment," Danny replied as he disabled another alien warrior with a precisely aimed shot that overloaded the creature's personal shield generator. "Their armor has weak points where the biological and technological components interface. Their weapons have safety systems that can be triggered if you know the right frequencies." The tide of battle began to turn as Danny shared his knowledge with the surviving defenders. He guided their targeting and helped them modify. their tactics to exploit Vorthic weaknesses that conventional military training would never have revealed. The alien warriors found themselves facing enemies who understood their technology better than they. Expected. Commander Zethkar received reports of the unexpected resistance with growing frustration and disbelief. His boarding parties were elite, warriors who had conquered dozens of species, yet they were being defeated by primitive humans who should have been easy prey. The situation made no sense, according to everything the Vorthic knew about human capabilities. "How are they penetrating our defenses?" Zethkar demanded from his position on the alien bridge. These humans were supposed to be technologically inferior. His subordinates had no answers to offer. The human defenders were using tactics and weapons modifications that demonstrated knowledge of Vorthic systems that should have been impossible for a species that had never encountered them before. Someone among the humans understood their technology. In ways that threatened the Empire's military superiority, Danny moved through the ship's corridors like a different person than the awkward technician everyone remembered. His nervous energy had transformed into focused intensity as he coordinated the human defense with an understanding of alien psychology that surprised even himself. He anticipated Vorthic movements because he understood how their equipment influenced their tactical thinking. The aliens began to retreat toward their boarding pods as their losses mounted. Annie followed them through maintenance tunnels and service passages that were too small for the larger creatures, appearing ahead of them with devastating ambushes that cut off their escape routes. His plasma rifle had become an extension of his will, guided by alien technology that made every shot count. Lieutenant Commander Peterson found himself following Danny's tactical instructions instead of giving them. The former laughingstock had become the most effective commander on the ship, demonstrating abilities that no one had suspected he possessed. His communications were confident and authoritative as he directed human forces with knowledge that came from understanding alien technology rather than conventional military training. The last Vorthic boarding party was trapped in a cargo bay with no escape route available. Danny stood at the entrance with his modified weapon aimed at the surviving aliens, his thick glasses reflecting the emergency lighting as he spoke to them in their own language. He had learned enough about their culture and psychology to understand that they would respect strength more than mercy. "Tell your commander that humanity understands his technology," Danny said in halting but recognizable Vorthic speech. "Tell him that we are not the primitive species he thought we were." News of the human victory spread through space like wildfire, carried by long-range communications and trade vessels that witnessed the aftermath of the battle. The U.E. Horizon had not only survived an encounter with the mysterious Vorthic Empire, but had actually defeated a superior alien force using tactics and technology that no one could explain. Military analysts throughout human space struggled to understand how such an outcome was possible. Commander Zethkar faced the humiliation of reporting his defeat to the Vorthic High Command, standing before a council of his military superiors. He tried to explain how elite warriors with advanced technology had been outmaneuvered by what should have been primitive humans. The explanation sounded impossible, even to his own ears. "You claim that one human understood our systems better than our own engineers," High Commander Vexthal said with obvious disbelief. "You expect us to believe that a single member of an inferior species defeated trained Vorthic warriors." "The evidence is undeniable," Zethkar replied, though his clicking voice betrayed his own confusion. "This human, designated as Danny Martinez, according to intercepted communications, demonstrated knowledge of our technology that should not exist. He modified their weapons and defenses using principles that we do not fully understand ourselves. High Command demanded a complete investigation into human capabilities, focusing particularly on the individual who had turned their certain victory into devastating defeat. Intelligence operatives were dispatched to gather information about Danny Martinez and determine whether he represented a new type of human weapon or enhanced soldier that posed a threat to the Empire's expansion plans. Meanwhile, aboard the UES Horizon, Danny struggled with his sudden transformation from laughingstock to hero. The same crew members who had mocked him for months now treated him with a mixture of awe and uncertainty that made him deeply uncomfortable. He had not changed in any fundamental way. He was still the same awkward technician who adjusted his glasses nervously and stumbled over his own feet during routine tasks. Adams promoted Danny to Chief Xenotechnology Specialist and assigned him quarters that reflected his new status aboard the ship. But the privileges felt strange and undeserved to someone who still thought of himself as the person everyone used to laugh at. He missed the simplicity of his old life, when his biggest worry was calibrating alien scanners instead of defending humanity against galactic threats. "You saved all our lives," Kyle Johnson said during an awkward conversation in what used to be their shared quarters. "I owe you an apology for all the things I said about you." Danny adjusted his glasses and looked down at his feet, unable to meet his former bunkmate's eyes. "I just understood their technology better than they expected. It was not anything special about me personally, but Kyle and the rest of the crew saw it differently." Word of Danny's abilities had spread throughout the human fleet, and requests for his consultation began arriving from every major command center in human space. Ship captains wanted him to modify their defensive systems, and military engineers begged for his insights into alien technology that might give humanity an edge in future conflicts. The Vorthic Empire's investigation into human capabilities revealed disturbing information about Danny Martinez and his unique talents. Intelligence reports indicated that this individual had an almost supernatural ability to understand and modify alien technology, making him perhaps the most dangerous human alive from the Empire's perspective. His existence threatened their military superiority and their plans for galactic conquest. This human must be eliminated before his innovations spread to other vessels, High Commander Vexthil declared during an emergency council session. If their entire fleet gains access to his modifications, our technological advantages will be neutralized. The Empire began planning a massive assault on human space with Danny Martinez as the primary target. They committed resources from 3 different battle fleets to ensure that this threat to their expansion would be permanently removed. The operation would be the largest military action in Vorthic history, designed to destroy human civilization before Danny's hybrid technology could proliferate throughout their route. Fleet.Danny remained unaware of the target painted on his back as he worked to modify more human ships with defensive systems based on Meridian principles. Admiral Patricia Hayes, the fleet commander responsible for sector defense, had assigned him to a classified project that involved upgrading the entire defensive grid, protecting Earth and its colonies. "Your modifications have already saved dozens of ships," Admiral Hayes told him during a secure briefing aboard the command vessel UES Constitution. "Every vessel that has encountered Vorthic forces since the Horizon incident has survived because of your innovations." Danny felt overwhelmed by the responsibility placed on his shoulders. He had never wanted to be a military hero or the savior of humanity. All he had ever wanted was to understand how alien technology worked and maybe earn the respect of his fellow crew members. Now the fate of human civilization seemed to depend on his ability to stay ahead of enemies who wanted him dead. The Vorthic scout ships began appearing at the edges of human space, probing defenses and gathering intelligence for the coming assault. Their observations confirmed their worst fears about human technological development. Danny's hybrid systems were spreading throughout the fleet, making human vessels far more dangerous than they had been during the initial encounter. Danny stood in his new laboratory aboard the Constitution and studied reports of Vorthic movements. near the outer colonies. His analysis of their scouting patterns revealed a disturbing truth. They were not planning random raids or limited attacks. The aliens were preparing for total war against humanity, and he suspected that he was the reason. "Why? They are coming for me specifically," he told Admiral Hayes during their next briefing. "Their scouting patterns are designed to locate command vessels and research facilities. They want to eliminate the source of our technological improvements." Admiral Hayes nodded grimly as she reviewed the same intelligence reports. "We have reached the same conclusion. The question is whether we try to hide you or use you as bait to draw them into a trap." Danny adjusted his glasses and considered the options available to them. Either choice would put him in mortal danger, but hiding would only delay the inevitable confrontation. The Vorthic Empire would not stop hunting him until he was dead or their entire fleet was destroyed. The time for running was over. The largest alien fleet in recorded history emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the solar system. 50 Vorthic warships arranged in perfect battle formation as they advanced toward Earth. Each vessel was larger and more heavily armed than the ship that had nearly destroyed the UES horizon, and together they represented the combined military might of an empire that had conquered 17 star systems. Admiral Patricia Hayes stood on the bridge of the UES Constitution and watched the enemy fleet approach with grim determination. The Human Defense Force consisted of 30 ships equipped with Danny's hybrid technology, but they were still outnumbered and outgunned by enemies with centuries of military experience. This would be humanity's greatest test, and failure would mean the extinction of their entire species. Danny Martinez had been given the rank of commander and assigned to coordinate the technological aspects of humanity's defense. He stood beside Admiral Hayes, wearing a uniform that still felt strange and uncomfortable, his thick glasses reflecting the tactical displays that showed the approaching enemy formation. The awkward technician who had once been the joke of his ship now bore responsibility for the survival of his entire species. "Their fleet composition suggests a total conquest strategy," Danny reported as he analyzed the Vorthic formation. "They are not planning to capture prisoners or establish occupation forces. This is meant to be complete extermination." The battle began at the orbit of Jupiter, where the first human patrol ships engaged the alien vanguard in a series of hit-and-run attacks designed to test the effectiveness of Danny's modifications. The hybrid defensive systems performed even better than expected, absorbing alien weapon fire and redirecting it back toward enemy vessels in cascading feedback loops that overloaded their shield generators. Commander Zeth Carr watched his forward scouts suffer unexpected losses and felt a familiar frustration building in his chest. The humans were using the same impossible technology that had defeated his boarding parties, but now it was deployed across their entire fleet. His tactical advantages were being systematically neutralized by innovations that defied everything the Vorthic understood about warfare. "Focus all fire on the command vessel," Zeth Carr ordered his fleet commanders. "The human who creates these modifications must be aboard their flagship. Eliminate him, and their resistance will collapse." But Danny had anticipated this strategy and prepared accordingly. The Constitution was equipped with the most advanced hybrid systems he could design, combining human engineering with technology borrowed from 6 different alien species. The ship's defenses were unlike anything that had ever existed, capable of adapting to enemy weapons in real time and growing stronger with each attack. The running battle continued across 3 planetary orbits as human forces used their superior mobility to avoid direct confrontation with a larger alien fleet. Danny's understanding of Vorthic psychology allowed him to predict their tactical responses and position human ships where they would have maximum advantage. He was no longer thinking like a technician, but like a general who understood his enemies better than they understood themselves. The climactic engagement took placed near Jupiter's largest moon, where Admiral Hayes sprung the trap that Danny had helped her design. The Vorthic fleet found itself surrounded by concealed human vessels that emerged from behind asteroid fields and orbital installations. The aliens had superior firepower, but they were caught in a crossfire that neutralized their numerical advantage. Danny's voice echoed across the human fleet's communication channels as he coordinated the complex battle from his position on the Constitution's bridge. His instructions were precise and confident, guiding ship captains through maneuvers that exploited weaknesses in alien formations that only he could see. The nervous technician was gone, replaced by a commander who spoke with the authority of someone who truly understood the enemy. Target their command vessel's primary weapon array, Danny ordered as the Constitution engaged Zethkar's flagship in direct combat. Their shield harmonics are vulnerable to sequential overload if you hit them in the right sequence. The hybrid weapon systems that Danny had designed proved devastatingly effective against Vorthic technology. Energy bolts struck alien shields and were absorbed, converted, and redirected with compound interest. The feedback loops grew stronger with each exchange until entire enemy vessels began shutting down their weapons to prevent catastrophic overloads. Commander, Zethkar found his mighty flagship helpless against human technology that turned his own weapons against him. The primitive species that he had come to exterminate was systematically dismantling his fleet using principles that the Vorthic had never encountered before. His warriors were being defeated by innovations that challenged everything the Empire believed about military superiority. The battle ended when half the Vorthic fleet was disabled or destroyed, and the remainder retreated toward the edge of the solar system. Danny watched the enemy vessels flee and felt no satisfaction in victory, only relief that humanity had survived its first major test against a galactic power. The awkward young man who had once shot himself in the foot during training had become the architect of the greatest military victory in human history. "You did it," Admiral Hayes said as she watched the alien fleet disappear into hyperspace. "You saved our entire species." Danny adjusted his glasses and looked out at the stars that no longer seemed as distant or threatening as they once had. "I just understood their technology. Anyone could have done the same thing if they had studied it long enough. But Admiral Hayes knew better, and so did the rest of humanity. Danny Martinez had become something more than a technician or even a military officer. He had become a symbol of human adaptability and ingenuity, proof that understanding could triumph over brute force when applied with wisdom and courage. This story concluded with Danny standing on the bridge of his own ship, the UES Innovation, as he prepared to lead humanity's first deep space exploration mission beyond the galactic rim. Captain Adams, now Admiral Adams, watched proudly as her former problem crew member accepted the responsibility of representing humanity to whatever new civilizations they might encounter among the stars. Danny remained fundamentally unchanged, despite his transformation from joke to legend. He still adjusted his glasses nervously and stumbled over his own feet occasionally. But now these quirks were seen as endearing rather than embarrassing. The galaxy had learned that humans were dangerous, not because they were the strongest or most advanced species, but because they had the wisdom to understand their enemies better than those enemies understood themselves.